Welcome to dentReviews. Tonight I'm going to be doing a review of the Moondrop Chu 2. This is a fairly new IEM from Moondrop, and I think they kind of made a bit of an improvement on the first Chu. I actually thought the first Chu was okay, and at the time that came out, it was a pretty revolutionary, inexpensive earphone in that it hit a very, very neutral target for its price point. This, I think, best sit in quality overall. It's a little bit different frequency response, and they did a few things. I think the housing is very, very similar, and I think they just kind of improved the overall design of every aspect of the earphone, and they kept it at a very low price point. So this is a dynamic driver earphone, which you know I love those. It is very inexpensive. It's in the $20 to $30 range, I believe. I should have probably checked that before this, but I suck at doing this, and I forgot to do that. So I'm going to guess it's $25, but don't quote me on that. Check the internet. But it's definitely less than $40, $50. It's like in the low budget bracket. So what do I like about this thing? Well, again, it's got a metal housing. It's got a nice shape. Let's go down here and take a look at it. Boop. Whoosh. Oh, yeah, look at that fancy. Oh, top-down camera. Up there. Where is it? There it is. Boom. It's a new thing. Hopefully it helps us out. Makes my process a little bit smoother for you guys. But this is the Chu 2. Boom. Let's see. Whoop, 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 whoop. Get in the middle here. There we go. Kind of a nice housing. It's got the little, I'm assuming that's a leaf, like a tree leaf from a, maple tree or something. I don't know what that is. Pardon my arbor ignorance. So this is the nozzle here. It has a very standard Moondrop tip. Unfortunately, it does not come with the spring tips, which are some of my favorite tips. But given the price, which again, I believe these are in the $20 range, $20 to $30, I actually feel that that's an acceptable sacrifice. I mean, I wish they had those, but basically you're getting an incredible value overall, and it's a very inexpensive package. So I think you can forgive them for that. Standard tips. This is really hard to get off, apparently. Let me get my shirt here. There we go. It's got like a brass-colored nozzle on there. It actually comes off. You can unscrew it. And it's got kind of a standard metal filter. It has a kind of contoured inner part of the shell there, which is pretty comfortable. I don't have any issue with the comfort on these things. Pretty nice. It's not overly thick. It's just kind of a black, simple, well-designed earphone. Now, these are not the cables that came with the earphone. I'll tell you why. And this is kind of comical. I actually did not buy these earphones because I wanted them. I bought them literally because I wanted the cable. This is the cable that comes with the Chu 2. I currently have them on my Zero 2 because, I mean, come on. Look at that. Is that not the sexiest thing you've ever seen? Translucent blue plastic, translucent white spring tip, translucent white cable, translucent right angle connector. I mean, this is just the sexiest thing in the world, and it sounds friggin' awesome. I'm going to review this as well, and I'll talk about this in a second with a comparison. But just for the price of admission, you are getting a pretty damn good cable, and it is a 2-pin Moondrop style cable, which the Zero uses as well. So that's the cable for the Chu 2. I bought the Chu 2 simply to get that cable because I have the Prisma Audio Azul, and that has a really nice cable that I absolutely love. It's actually one of my favorite cables of all time in the way that it feels, but unfortunately the 2-pin connectors on that were becoming loose and my earphones were starting to fall off of the cable. So I got the Chu 2 cable because it was a really inexpensive 2-pin cable and I needed another 2-pin cable. So I put, ironically, the Zero 2 cable onto the Chu 2. Lots of 2s in this review. Now, here's what I think is hilarious. I think the Chu cable looks awesome on the Zero 2, and I think the Chu looks better on the Zero cable. So if you swap them, you get a really nice package. Look at that. It looks like it's made for this IEM. It's got like a frosted black outer piece here for the pins, and then it has a earpiece, and then it's got a dark cable. It's a pretty small little 7Z piece there, and this one does have a cord lock, which the Chu 2 cable actually does not have a cord lock, which is a little bit of a disappointment, but not the end of the world. You can kind of jury-rig your own. This has a straight cable, whereas the Chu cable actually has the right angle connector that I just showed you. So I actually think the Chu 2 looks better with the Zero cable, ironically. But anyway, the big question, as you know, here at dentReviews is, what does it sound like? Well, I actually think that for the price, this is definitely one of the better offerings at $20, $30. The sound is a little bit towards a Harman tuning. It's got a little bit of extra bass, a little bit of extra mid and upper treble. It's a very smooth, very revealing, very high quality sound. The dynamic driver is a very good driver. I don't feel like there's any major flaws. In fact, the frequency response itself is actually pretty flawless in terms of dips and peaks. There's no major dips, there's no major peaks. Nothing's obvious, nothing's irritating. My biggest flaw with the sound of these is that it has a little bit of extra bass and a little bit of extra upper mid trebles, which again, a little bit on the Harman side. I feel like that gives the treble a slightly unnatural upper tilt to it instead of like having enough lower treble that's kind of subdued, whereas the upper is a little bit raised, and that gives it a little bit less accurate timbre. Things just don't sound as natural. It does give you the benefit of certain instruments, and vocal clarity is very pronounced and very good, so I feel like they have good definition. In fact, they might even be kind of heightened definition in a sense because of that frequency response. If you look at the graph, there's really not a lot of issue with the response overall. It's well balanced. As I said, no dips or peaks, but you can see it has a little bit of bass weight to it and a little bit of that treble response. If you look at it, the lower treble to the higher treble, if you take that entire range, it's like it's shifted up a little bit from my response instead of kind of matching the round curve. So what that does is primarily takes away from that lower treble that I really like, that edemotic-like sound, which takes away from a little bit of body in the lower treble of a vocal or like an instrument that has a metallic timbre. And what you end up having is a little bit more thin quality to that low body, if that makes any sense. Like basically a vocal is not a very wide range frequency response. A lot of vocals might be in the primarily 2 to 10 kilohertz range, let's say, the primary meat of your vocals. So the lower part of that, I would say, is the body of your vocal. And yes, it goes lower than that, but that's primarily where you're going to hear it. So let's say that 2 kilohertz is a little bit low. Well, it makes the voice sound a little bit thinner, a little less body, but at the same time a little bit more piercing, and it cuts through mixes a little bit better. So while it's not perfectly natural, and it's not very far deviated from my ideal target, it just doesn't sound as good as something with a little bit more lower treble. So I would call that personally a little bit more of a Harman tilt, because Harman has a little bit of that extra energy, a little higher than I prefer, and then with the added bass as well, you're basically getting a slightly more Harman tilt overall. I would call them slightly V-shaped, although again they're fairly neutral. They don't have any massive boosts in the bass or treble. They're comfortable. I don't feel like they have any points of contact on my ear, where they would hit anything in the outer ear. They seat in the ear pretty well. They have decent sound isolation for the style of earphone they are, which is a vented dynamic driver. I have not tried to mod this particular one because I don't think it needs more bass, but I would have to assume, and this is completely a guess, but like the other earphones of its type, you could probably tape over the bass port or put some kind of putty in there or something, and it would probably increase the low bass. So, what do I think? Are they worth it? I think it's a very good sound. I think they have good quality overall. The definition is very, very good. Spaciousness and how big and wide and like ambient things sound is not the best that I've heard. I think they're good. I think they sound fairly neutral and accurate in an overall dimensionality. So in other words, if you think something sounds like it's over there, or something sounds like it's over there, or how far does something sound like it is from you, that whole kind of three-dimensional sphere of dimensionality, as I call it, I think is pretty good. It's not amazing, but if you put it against something like the Monarch 2 by Thaudio, it's going to lose. But I actually think this probably has better timbre than that, and the frequency response is still pretty good. So for $20, it's definitely a good recommendation. As I will review soon, I think the Zero 2 is actually better. This is probably my default recommendation right now. This is probably one of the nicest earphones I've heard, period, especially in the budget sector. So I definitely would say I prefer the Zero 2 because the response of the Zero 2 compared to the Chu 2 is a little bit more smooth. The treble does have a little bit softer quality to it than the Chu 2. Not soft in like a muffled way, but just it's a little bit smoother, which I prefer. It actually has a more neutral tilt to it, and the lower treble's a little more present, and the bass shape is a little bit better. So the bass on the Zero 2 has a nice firmness to it, but it doesn't sound bloated. Even though it is technically a little bit above my neutral target, I think it's just a better overall balance and presentation. So I prefer the Zero 2 over the Chu 2, but they're realistically fairly close. I think the Chu 2 has a little bit more bass body, if you like that kind of thing, and maybe a little bit more like a cutting definition. So a little touch more V-shape, I guess you could say. And some people like that energetic sound, especially with kind of like modern pop music or rock music where things aren't as dynamically produced as they used to be. And that kind of almost gives a little bit of extra energy to music. You might like the Chu 2. The Zero 2, while it might sound a little bit more laid back comparatively, I think sounds a little bit more open and spacious in the way that it presents the dimensionality I talked about. Things definitely come across as wider to me. I hear imaging that's very far off center, and I hear things very deep and very close as they naturally would sound. So I think that given the price, I don't think the Chu 2 is nearly as good as the Zero 2 in those regards, but it's going to be a very subjective thing. At this price point and at this type of frequency response, you need to decide, are you looking for more of a studio accurate sound, relatively speaking, or more of an energetic V-shaped sound? Zero 2, I think, would be more studio. Chu 2 would be a little bit more energetic. I don't think you can go wrong with either of them. And if you have, an earphone that you wanted to gift somebody, I hate to say it, but I think the Chu 2 is probably a better earphone for two reasons. One, just my personal opinion, the presentation's better. Even though I think this is a gorgeous earphone and it sounds and looks amazing, it's plastic and it's clearly plastic, pun intended, but it has the translucent plastic and it might just look like a toy to some people, whereas the Chu has a metal housing with a really nice minimal design. I actually like it a lot, and it just feels a little bit more substantial, and the packaging it comes with has like the, forgive my pronunciation, like waifu, kind of foreign aesthetic to it, which is kind of anime style and looks a little bit nice, and it just has a better presentation. And I think most people might actually prefer the energetic sound. People that are not used to a more studio sound, the Zero 2 might be a little bit far from what they're regularly used to, whereas the Chu 2 is a much better, more refined version of that V-shape. So I think the Chu 2 would be a great gift for somebody. I think a lot of people are going to love this. If you're not really an audiophile and you're not really into targets and you don't really know exactly what you're looking for, but you want someone just to recommend something that sounds really high quality and great, I think the Chu 2 is phenomenal. If you are a little bit more knowledgeable and you're familiar with technicalities, frequency response, and different attributes like that, I think you might, maybe not, but you might prefer the Zero 2 for what I consider a superior audio quality. And if it's not your style, well, there's a couple different colors you can get. There's a red one, a blue one, and whatever. So that's kind of the comparison. I think the Chu 2 is great for the price, high quality. Would I own it personally? Probably not, because I like the Zero 2, but I wanted the cable. I just needed a cable, so that was a $20 cable for me. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions about it, let me know. I definitely will put it on my recommendation list and say it's a good value. Definitely. I think there's much more expensive IEMs that are nowhere near the quality of this. So, as you know, I like this kind of general vein of Target, and it hits it pretty good, and it does it in a high-quality package. So, that is the Moondrop Chu 2. Thank you guys, as always, for watching. Please like and subscribe. I definitely could use the support on the channel, and I'll try to keep making new videos.